Hi, and welcome to the Modern Persian Food Podcast. We are food bloggers,
Bita Arabian,
and Bita Nazim Kelly, and we're here to share with you the rich flavors and fresh ingredients of Persian cooking and how to incorporate them into today's modern lifestyles.
We're excited to introduce you to the flavors, tastes, and techniques we use, and also our own cultural stories and perspectives growing up in the U.S. in a Persian family. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome to episode number 17 of the Modern Persian Food Podcast. I am here with Bita, and this is Bita speaking. We got double Bita action here, as usual. And today we're going to be talking about Torshi, which is a Persian pickle, basically. It can vary from different vegetables and herbs, sometimes even fruits in there. And we wanted to just share with you what Torshi is, what role it plays on the table, on the sofre of a Persian table, and what our thoughts are about it. So I wanted to first start off by saying thank you to Bita June, because I know this wasn't necessarily your first choice of topics, but thank you for coming along with me on this ride and talking about Torshi. So tell me, do you like Torshi?
Hi, Bita June. Oh my gosh. I'm always delighted to talk to you. And I have nothing against Torshi. I mean, I super appreciate Torshi. I feel like it's one of those things that when someone makes it, they make a big batch and then they often share it in the little jars and bring it to a gathering or share it with family and friends. And I always appreciate it. I'm always very willing to try it. And I love that it's different every time I try it. So I think what my hesitation was is that I don't have a ton of confidence because I've never made it.
Yeah.
I've tasted it. I appreciate it. I absolutely know what it is. Mm-hmm. And I guess we knew that this was on our content calendar. So a few weeks ago, I asked my mom, what's in Torshi? Because I don't know how to make it. And this is how a lot of times I learn to make things, is with just asking my mom or my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
So my mom said, well, yeah, my sister makes it. My Khalamina, my mom's sister, lives in Australia. So now we're on this hunt. Okay, we need Khalamina's recipe. So how we finally found out what's in my Khalamina's Torshi is like through WhatsApp and through these long distance phone conversations from Australia and the time zone. So I have sort of a chicken scratched out notes on what's in my aunt's Torshi. And so limited knowledge on Torshi. Tell me your experience with Torshi.
Sure. So, I mean, I understand that because Torshi, I think, could be a very polarizing condiment, really, because you have it really paired with other foods. You don't really eat Torshi on its own. It can be pretty polarizing because it's made with vinegar. So it has a really strong smell and a very strong flavor. So if you're not really into vinegar, you're definitely not going to really like Torshi. Torshi, as with so many other of the Persian foods, can be regional and family-based recipes. So every house is going to have a little bit of a different type of Torshi. So what you put in your Torshi can be different from what your neighbor or your family puts in their Torshi. But essentially, it's chopped up vegetables like carrots, cauliflower, cabbage, peppers, garlic, onions, and you could have fresh herbs like parsley and cilantro and dill, or even mix up with dried herbs. You could put like dried tarragon or dried mint or even dried basil in there. And sometimes with different spices like limoo omani, even powdered limoo omani, nigella seeds, fennel seeds, turmeric, crushed peppers, and salt. And basically cover it all with vinegar, seal it up. And after like a few weeks to a month, the vegetables start pickling and eventually soften a little bit and turns into this condiment that you serve alongside your rich stews or hearty soups or your abgusht. And it really like cuts the richness of those foods. So it's actually very simple, but yeah, so I don't have a recipe for it either, except for these kind of anecdotal notes that I'm just sharing now. So growing up, Torshi was definitely part of the table. And when you would go to parties, there would always be Torshi at the table. I can say that I didn't really experiment eating Torshi that much growing up. What really turned me on to Torshi was when I was a little bit older. As a single girl living in San Francisco, right off of Polk Street. And there was a restaurant that I would frequent all the time called Street. And I loved going there. I would go there a few times a week. And one day I was actually speaking with the chef and he found out that I was Persian. And he said, "Oh, so you know Torshi." And I was like, yeah, torshi. It's like always at the table. It's really strong smell and flavor. Yeah, torshi. And that is actually what initiated me looking into torshi a little bit more. I'd always loved vinegar. I'm a big vinegar person, but I hadn't really like delved into torshi. And after that conversation with him, I went home to my mom's house when I visited her, and I was like, tell me about torshi. And we tried different torshi with our food and stuff like that. And I actually took a little jar for that chef so that he could taste my family's torshi. And that's actually what like really sparked me getting into torshi. So it's always funny because the torshi is always in like an old pickle jar. Whatever pickle jar that had like standard Americanized pickles in it, washed and cleaned. And so you're getting like a Persian torshi that has like a Clausen label on the top of it.
All right. That's nice that you were able to make some and take it back to share. I love trying it because it's always different. Mm-hmm. It's even different as far as like how they chop it. Like sometimes it's super finely chopped, and then other times they leave it whole. You can see the cauliflower shape and the carrots. And the vinegar and the salt is a big part of making torshi. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's a little bit of sugar, but I think in Persian pickled vegetables, it's usually just vinegar and salt and then the herbs and the spices. My aunt's is pretty basic as far as like with the garlic and the small onions and the cauliflower and the celery and the vinegar and salt and herbs. But like you said, sometimes it has cabbage, eggplant, bell peppers, cucumber. Mm-hmm. I've never tried a torshi with fruit. I can't say that I want to. I don't think I want vinegar and salt in my fruit.
Yeah, so there are a few different variations of the type of torshi. One variation is that it actually has fruit, like peaches or nectarines, kind of give that sweetness to it, like a torshi shirin. So it's a little bit sour and a little bit sweet. Some other variations is that you can also make it a little bit spicier. So you can add peppers, put like jalapenos in there. You can either leave the pepper whole and kind of like poke holes in the pepper itself for the heat to come out, or you can just chop it up really small and put it in there too. The mixed type of torshi where you have a bunch of different vegetables, that's actually called makhloot. So it's like a mix of a whole bunch of vegetables. So you can focus just on one vegetable. Like you could do like an eggplant one. You have to cook the eggplant a little bit first. There's also sear torshi, which is just garlic, which I think is actually like my favorite. You can actually keep the garlic in its peel, cover it with vinegar, and add a little salt to that. And they actually have a term for it. It's like the 8-year torshi. You know, like after 8 years, it turns into like this dark brown color, and it's super soft and super sweet.
Wow.
I think some recipes will have more sweet things in it, like for example, carrots or beets, to actually make the whole torshi a little bit sweeter.
I appreciate the bite. I think this is what another thing that differentiates it from, say, a Mexican style pickled vegetable. They'll have the pickled carrots and peppers and stuff right there with the salsas.
Yep.
But it's very mild. The Mexican pickled vegetables are very mild. With Persian pickled vegetables, you just take a tiny bit on your spoon with the other food, and it's just like a burst, almost a bite of very sour, very spicy sometimes, and it's fun. I like it. And in terms of storing it, I've never had that very, very aged one, but it sounds like if you store it correctly that you can keep it. But in traditional torshis, I think that if it is in a tight lid jar, you could keep it for 6 months to, I don't know, beyond in your refrigerator safely.
You have to make sure that everything is submerged in the vinegar and tighten the top securely. I believe it's shelf stable until you open it.
Yes. And then, you know, the salt water brine, I would think, acts as a preservative as well.
Yeah. Thank you again, Bita June, for spending a few minutes to talk about torshi with me.
Yes.
So this week's Ask the Beets, we have a question from Mercedes out of the UK. And she asks us, do you feel disconnected from your Persian identity? And what do you do to overcome it? That's a great question. Actually, the other day, listened to a panel discussion from Farhang Foundation about how food inspires us and cultural identity. So I think this is a really timely question. So Bita, would you like to go ahead and take a stab at that?
Yeah, sure. I so enjoyed that panel that we were listening to as well. Both of us were there. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Marcita, for your question. It's a deep one, and we welcome all questions. They don't have to be food related, because I think our conversations can go beyond that. And food can be more meaningful than that. But yes, absolutely, I have struggled with my identity. For me, it's kind of been a very ongoing journey growing up in the Midwest. didn't always feel like I fit in. We had some relatives, but not a lot. There was a community of Iranians, but not a ton. I was just a kid that wanted to be like everybody else. And so I very quickly became Americanized. Well, then finding myself as a young adult in California and marrying into an Iranian family with more roots to the Iranian community and more family and more people around me, I then started to feel like, wait, I'm also not Iranian. I would get criticized for not speaking Farsi. And why did my parents not teach me Farsi? Why didn't they speak Farsi with me growing up? And so I struggled. I'm like, okay, I'm not Iranian enough for Iranians. I'm not quite, American. I'm me. Mm-hmm. And so I think for me, cooking Persian food and learning about culture through Persian food, this has all been a journey. And it's just, for me, this is finally starting to feel like I'm finding all the parts of myself. Mm-hmm. And then kind of relating it to being a mom, I know my girls struggle with the same thing. Like, they know very, very basic Farsi. They know the foods. They were born in this country. And so they struggle with some of the same things, but they're fortunate in that they have their extended family. They have both their sets of grandparents nearby and a lot more family, and living in California, a lot more opportunity to feel the culture. How about you?
I definitely relate to trying to find my own identity. Growing up, I was born here in San Francisco, and both of my parents are Persian, and I had kind of extended cousins and stuff like that were around growing up. I also have 3 brothers, so it may have been the courage that they gave to me and some of the values that we had as a family that, even though I was a little bit different, trying to just continue to have the values that were really important to us as a family outshine not fitting in necessarily with, my froed out hair or like my thick eyebrows, which are things that like I embrace now that I'm older in a different part of my life. But yeah, growing up was definitely challenging. I think I told you a story one time about why are our hamburgers oval shaped like a kebab and not like a hamburger. I got to a point where I wanted to just have the same regular foods that my neighbors and my friends were having, not necessarily realizing that like our friends would love to come to our house and have Persian food and tahdig and try the eggplant stew and try all these different foods that weren't native to their families. So I think that there was some lack of self-confidence that, even though I tried to be very confident and I feel like I am a pretty confident person, that there were moments that like I was just a little bit unsure of myself. But, I grew up in the Bay Area. It's really great. There's a lot of different cultures here. There's a lot of acceptance for diversity and a very rich community that we live in. And I think that as I grew older, I gained the confidence to really be who I am, regardless of what my culture is. The culture is a part of who I am, but that doesn't define who I am. Like those values of like being a good person and being a good friend and being a good sister or community member, like those were the things that really kind of outshined it. And I think that as I grew older and I moved to New York on my own and kind of had those experiences, it made me really just enjoy different elements of my life, one of them being Persian. And that's actually when I started off my food blog back when I was living in New York, Beets Eats, and just trying to like embrace Persian food and our culture. And it's like such a really beautiful culture that it's like such a shame that we wouldn't feel so proud sometimes in our lives. And, I married someone who's not Persian. So I think that what really fortified and really strengthened my identity is actually marrying someone who's not Persian and really being able to embrace my own culture and show my culture to someone who isn't from my culture. And, I have 2 little kids. And so do they speak 100% Farsi? Do they only eat Persian food? Do they have all of the cultural background and history of what Persian culture is? No, they don't. But I try to have balance in what I teach my kids. I try to have balance in what I do in my own life. I try to have balance in the type of foods I eat and the mental wellness that I have and the life that I live. And so I'm hoping that I can have balance so that I can be a better person, so I could be a better mother and being proud of who I am. And you can't judge me because of something that the government of the country that my heritage is from has done. So growing up, that was the big challenge, is like people, when they would hear Persian or would hear Iran, would, automatically go to what like the press had shown them, the not so glamorous pictures. You weren't going to see like the culture and the art and the science and the education that was all there. So I think that having balance and not feeling guilt of what the other people in my culture have done, I think is really what's driving me to feel stronger about my identity and to help define who I really am.
Thank you for sharing all that. Gosh, it's so healing to talk about. It really is. And thank you, Marcita, for asking that question. After she asked the question, she actually said, sorry, I know this is a really deep question. And I said, oh my gosh, no, I love this topic. And I think that it's going to come up again.
Yeah.
Because we're all going through it. We all feel some part of it, even from other cultures.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's part of what drew me to you, honestly, Bita, because my name growing up as a kid, I used to want to change my name.
Yeah.
I didn't want that name. I wanted to be Denise. I wanted to change my name. I'm like, people butchered it. Growing up, they
always
butchered my name. Teachers, they tried so hard and it came out every single way. And I came to a point where I was like, yeah, Bita. And guess what it means? It means unique.
Yep.
And I embrace what makes me different. And you come to find out that the people you want to be friends with like those parts of you. They love those parts that make you unique and different.
Yeah, exactly.
Bita and Beata, what a fun episode.
Yeah.
Yes, just send us more questions on Instagram, our handle @modernpersianfood, through our email, hello@modernpersianfood. And thank you so much for joining us.
So you've been listening to Modern Persian Food with Bita and Beata. Thanks for spending time with us. If you enjoyed what you heard today, consider telling your friends or giving us a good rating on iTunes. You can subscribe to our show for free on your favorite podcasting app or find us online at modernpersianfood.com for recipes and info that we talked about today. Thanks so much. We'd love to hear your thoughts and see you next time.